called The Utter Relief of Holiness, subtitled How God's Goodness Frees Us from Everything That Plagues Us. That's a great title and a great subtitle. John Eldredge, welcome to today's issues.
Hey, good to be back with you guys.
John, the utter relief of holiness. You know, I think most of us, particularly if we've gone to church for a while, listened to sermons on holiness, we might feel like holiness is some kind of heavy, heavy, heavy burden. Yet you say holiness, rightly understood, is an utter relief. What's that all about?
Exactly. It got your attention, didn't it?
It sure did.
Yeah, because most people don't see it as an utter relief. You know, it's hard, boring, it's flossing. But here's the deal. You take the alcoholic and you say, what would it be like to just be free from that? Like not discipline, not more accountability, but just, I just don't want it anymore. Or you take the young girl who's, anorexic and she's just, obsessed with food and diet and exercise, and she wakes up one day and that's just gone. That's the relief of holiness, that God, as he restores our lives, he really does free us from the power of the compulsions, the obsessions, the sin, the strongholds in our life. And when you look at it that way, you go, man, that would be phenomenal to be free from the things that haunt you.
You know, John, I imagine there's a lot of people hear what you've just said and go, wow, I would really, really like that. But is that kind of change really possible? Maybe some people say, boy, I've tried it and I'm just stuck where I am. What do you say?
What did you try is what I want to know. In other words, most people are given kind of a gospel of discipline or really just forgiveness, that the real relief is in heaven, and right now we're forgiven and we do our best. But when you look at the way Jesus deals with people in the Gospels, he restores their lives. He's really about restoration. And there's a process by which we can walk through not only confession and repentance, but the breaking of strongholds in our lives, the healing of places in us that are vulnerable to those sins and compulsions and addictions. There's a means by which God restores human lives. And the beautiful thing is it's laid out for us right there in the Scriptures.
Where do we begin? What's the... Somebody says, man, John, I'm stuck. You have described my life. Where in this pursuit of holiness, this utter relief of holiness, where do we begin?
Let me give you two very simple things. I think, first off, you have to begin by breaking the agreements that you've been making with it. In other words, the enemy's all about the destruction of our lives. And he comes in, he's the father of lies, so he's really good at it. And he gets agreements with us, things like, I'll never change. Things like, God's just not helping me. We make agreements like, I just can't live without this, whatever this might be, the affair or the heroin or food or whatever it is. You have to begin by breaking those agreements, because when you make the agreement that real change isn't possible, well, guess what? You're going to have a hard time finding real transformation. You break the agreements, but then the other simple step to take is Jesus wants to give you his life, like literally his life, his power, the whole vine and branches thing, and to begin to ask Jesus for his holiness in this particular area. And so if it's a sexual struggle, what I want to do is I want to turn my sexuality over to Jesus. And I mean, literally, most men have never done this. To just the simple step of, Jesus, I give you my sexuality, and I ask you for your holiness in my sexuality. Because we're talking about a supernatural life here. This isn't just gutting it out, gritting your teeth, and trying to do better. God gives us a supernatural grace, and it begins by, frankly, asking for it.
Talking to John Eldredge, author of The Utter Relief of Holiness, how God's goodness frees us from everything that plagues us. I'm Tim Wildman with Ray Pritchard on American Family Radio. Yeah, when I read that, John, your title of your book, I was thinking, does John really want to sell books anymore? Putting the word holiness on the front of a book? John, nobody even knows what that word means anymore.
I know.
But it's a classic word in Christianity.
Right. So just substitute, for your listeners, just substitute goodness. Look at the compelling goodness of Jesus. I mean, his integrity, his graciousness with irritating people, his ability to forgive. I mean, the goodness of Jesus is one of the most beautiful things about him. It's absolutely compelling. So, yeah, if holiness is a word that you kind of trip over, I'd just substitute goodness for it.
The word righteousness is a common word, too, in the Bible.
Right.
Are they holiness and righteousness, are they synonymous?
I think they are. And again, because of our culture and because we've lost, sort of a biblical literacy, those words might not ring true for people. But we continue to hear them in the pulpit, and that's actually why I used it in the title and added utter relief to it, to try and restore. There's a hopefulness to this, gang. Righteousness, goodness, holiness, trueness, all these things that we hear, like those are good things. They're not, they're not bad, heavy, soul-killing, life-draining, just, crushing burden things. Not, you read the New Testament, and these guys are talking about the inexpressible joy of walking in goodness. They're talking about the utter relief of it. And when, in Hebrews it says, don't lose heart when God disciplines you. He's trying to give you his holiness. It goes on to say that the life that's been trained by holiness is full of peace and joy and happiness. You want to be happy? Let God make you holy.
Hey, John, how do we, what are some things that we can do to help us practice this? I mean, as Christians, are there some things we can do daily?
Here's the big shift, because what most people are bracing themselves for is the list.
Right.
I got my pen ready here, brother.
That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Give us a list.
Yeah.
And here's the transforming power of the New Testament. This was the mind-blowing thing that Jesus brought to the world. He says, look, just start with the heart. Mm-hmm. Just notice where your heart goes every day. He's ranting at the religious, kind of bureaucrats of his day, and he says, you clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside you're an absolute disaster. And he says, you clean the inside, and the outside will be clean as well. Don't start with the list. Don't start with, I need to be, nice with people. I need to make sure I share my faith today. I need to make sure I'm tithing. Don't start with the list. Start with your heart. Notice, it's very, very simple. Just notice where your heart's going. Again, if it's a sexual thing, notice the attraction. And in that moment, you say, Jesus, come into my heart right here. Come into this moment. If you notice the bitterness coming in, you notice the envy or the jealousy. This is an issue of the heart. That's where the transformation takes place. And so rather than trying to bust out the list every day, notice where your heart is going. And then keep inviting Christ into that.
But does prayer and, let's say, meditation, Bible reading, those kinds of things, do they help you?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Of course, absolutely, right. You want to do something really, really great for your holiness, turn off the television. Just notice what's coming in every day. What are you partaking of, right? Mm-hmm. What do you listen to on the radio? What's the kind of music? What's coming into your soul? But again, that stuff can quickly get into list keeping when Jesus says, what I'm after is a genuine transformation of the heart. And so that's where the real repentance takes place. That's where the real transformation is. Jesus, I forgive this person. Jesus, I renounce this lust towards this person. I come and transform my heart.
John, in the book you talk about at some points that religion, quote, religion can actually be soul-destroying in terms of our trying to grow a spirit. I mean, some people think, if I can just be more religious. What is the danger of somebody saying, if I just try harder, I'll finally get there?
You will end up so discouraged because that doesn't work. The scriptures are very clear that the law doesn't work. Self-discipline by itself doesn't work. Rule-keeping, trying to be a good citizen, all that stuff. By itself, it doesn't work. That's the whole point of the Old Testament is, look, you cannot shape up human beings merely by duty, by rule-keeping. The whole stunning thing of the appearance of Jesus of Nazareth is he says, look, not only am I going to forgive you, and you are forgiven, by the way, and that's really crucial for people to understand because Paul says this wild thing in Romans 6. He says, sin is not going to be your master because you're not under the law, you're under grace. That the law only provokes more sin. The wild thing of the New Testament is that God says, I'm actually going to give you a new heart. I'm going to give you a new nature. I'm going to give you my spirit. I'm going to transform your life from the inside out. And I mean, that's why religion, because the worst thing about religion is when it works, because then that person is self-righteous, right? They think, they look down their nose at other people and they don't realize, there but for the grace of God go I,
Mm-hmm. A lot of people, I mean, a misconception down through the ages, I think, of Christianity is that it is a religion.
Yep.
And we understand Christianity is a religion in the social science sense. Okay, right. We understand that. But Christianity is not a religion of do's and don'ts. Yes, there are the commandments. There are the Sermon on the Mount. There are things there are do's and don'ts in the Bible. But the essence of the Christian faith is not keeping a list, as you said, John, because we're going to fail at that. And if we're going to fail enough, we're going to quit, and we're going to be discouraged. And so, Ray, you pick up on that thought there?
John, say something to us. We're coming out to the end of our segment, but say something about motives, that why we do what we do makes a great difference. And you talk about the two motives that Jesus gives us to live by. Say a quick word about that.
God is really kind with us. When he boils things down, he says, look, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor. It's a really simple way to enter each day. If you just make a practice of loving God, if in that morning you are loving God, you're going to find it pretty hard to yell at your kids. If in that drive time you're loving God, you're going to have a pretty hard time raging at people on the highway. The simple act of loving God and loving others realigns our heart toward the direction of holiness, righteousness, goodness, trueness, all those things that we want. And so, again, it just comes back to issues of the heart. Just watch your motives. Just be aware of your motives every day and invite Christ into that.
Talking to John Eldredge. He's been our guest the last few minutes. The book is called The Utter Relief of Holiness, How God's Goodness Frees Us from Everything That Plagues Us. And the book is available everywhere in America.
Published by Faith Words. John, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
I'm honored, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, John. John Eldredge. His last name is E-L-D